2 workouts and 1 long run. That was my testing done for the Saucony Endorphin Elite before boxing them up and saving them for race day. So how did I fare when I finally took them out for a recent 10-mile race? Well, today, that's what we're finding out. Now, I knew from testing that I immediately wanted to use these for my goal half marathon next month, and thankfully I had this weekend's 10-miler to give them a run out first, just test them out in a race environment and see how they fared, and they certainly didn't disappoint. And I thought what I could do is start off by giving you guys some stats on the run, how it performed in terms of paces, heart rates, cadence, all of that sort of stuff, because it's quite interesting. I did a video recently comparing the Endorphin Elite to Vaporfly version 3, where I did kind of like a head-to-head workout, and the Endorphin Elite I think just edged it, just came out on top for efficiency and heart rate and all of that sort of stuff. So I think this will be quite interesting for you guys to note, because my heart rate, as it always does on race day, really did elevate. So we'll go through that right now. I'll throw everything on the screen. I'm just going to read it off here for you. 5 miles, the first chunk was done at marathon pace, and that was 29 minutes 26 seconds when I hit the lap button on my watch, which averaged out 5:52 per mile or 3:39 per k average pace. Average heart rate was 165, so that was kind of quite controlled. Really, I would have liked that really much lower down in the 160s, late 150s, early 160s, because I knew then if I'd have done that, I'd have had a lot more to kick into, but I didn't, and that's what it was on the day. And then I did 3 miles at half marathon pace, and that came in at 16 minutes and 54 seconds, and that was 5:38 average pace per mile or 3:30 per k, with an average heart rate of 171. I think that peaked out around 178, but for that chunk, that was quite a decent heart rate. That's where I really want my heart rate to be on race day at Oxford, my goal half marathon. I want to kind of start in the mid to late 160s and then sort of finish in the mid to late 170s, but kind of average out there, because when I tip over sort of 172, 173, that's when I get into my threshold, and I know I'm on borrowed time at that point. Sorry, tip over my threshold, I should say. And the final 2 miles, I really didn't have too much, but I did manage to pick it up marginally. 11 minutes, 26 seconds, 5:36 per mile, 3:29 per k average pace. Average heart rate, 178. I topped out there at 181. That's pretty standard. 181, 182 is where I tend to peak in a race, especially in 10Ks and 5Ks. I've been known to, I think I've hit like 183 like once or twice, but usually the very, very low 180s is where I top out. And I could definitely feel that towards the end, but I have to say everything felt really manageable. So just some interesting stats there, but I want to show you some cadence information. Now, what I thought was really interesting to share, because obviously everybody deals with fatigue slightly differently, but my first 5 miles, my cadence was 173, which is quite good for me, to be honest with you, around marathon pace. That's quite choppy. For someone that's 6'6", I've struggled with cadence, so getting into the 170s is quite decent. So that's 173 with a stride length of 1.58 meters, and that was the average for the 5 miles. And then when I kicked into half marathon gear, my cadence dropped to 172, so marginal, but 172. Stride length went up to 1.66 meters, so obviously I opened out my stride a little bit more as I really started to put the work in. And the final 2 miles stride, my cadence dropped again to 171. So over the run it's gone from 173 to 171, but my stride length went up again to 1.67, so very, very negligible between the 3 miles and the 2. I knew I couldn't pick it up that much, so those two are very, very similar. I just thought I'd share that, because what was obviously interesting is my my cadence relatively stayed the same. It did drop a couple of steps a minute by the end. My stride length did open up, so I seem to kind of, when I get fatigued or try and go faster, I try and sort of, rather than try and pick up my steps per minute, I try and open out my stride a little bit more. I know other people do it other way around. That just seems to be what happened on this occasion. Now, the thing that really stood out for me this weekend in the race was going from marathon pace to half marathon pace in the race. Now, I kind of had a deep down feeling that I know it would be good. I've tested it enough, but I just wanted to put it through that race environment and see how it felt on race day. But what really did surprise me was I'm not going to say I was gassed. I was tired after the marathon pace work. I knew I'd worked a little bit hard. I've said this in a couple of videos now, the race recap and today. It was very manageable, but it definitely was not marathon effort. And if I'd have carried on that for a marathon, disaster would have happened. So I was probably pushing my luck a little bit. But I genuinely felt at 5 miles that I wasn't going to be able to pick it up that much, and I was thinking to myself already, like, oh man, I'm going to get into the 540s, but that's going to be it, and I'm not going to be able to have any gas in the tank to go into the 530s. but my body responded really well and the shoes just worked with me. It was such a wonderful feeling, because often what you can find is your body works really well, you're feeling strong, you want to go for it, but sometimes I've found in previous shoes, sometimes they can feel a bit cumbersome and they don't want to work with you and they don't really aid you in what you're trying to do, but these really did. They worked with me, and when I tried to pick things up and I really started to, effectively I dropped the hammer at 5 miles, and that 6th mile for me was quite fast. It went from like 5:54 or whatever in mile 5 to like a 5:32 or a 5:33. So I really did sort of like really surged and went for it. And then the next 2 miles are 5:40 and 5:42, and that's kind of where I hovered around after that, because the final 2 miles were 5:38 and 5:39. So it's that late 5:30s, early 5:40s. But just getting it to go, literally just from marathon pace, hit the lap button and go. You need to up the ante here. The body responded well. I was grateful for that, but the shoes, they were just fantastic. And they felt as smooth as butter. I think what really, really excited me when I was out there, well, I kind of got halfway through that first mile and I thought, wow, I feel better than I thought I would. And these shoes feel absolutely magnificent. So for me, the standout feature was nothing else other than how well they responded to what I was trying to do on race day, and yeah, they just worked so well. And just before I get to the one negative that I found when I finished racing, I just want to reiterate from that previous video that I did comparing the Vaporfly, because I get asked this a lot. A lot of people have said, you know, how soft's the foam? This is the most common question, and comparing it to the Vaporfly. When I was doing the Vaporfly 3 comparison, when you stack these two against each other, the Vaporfly foam is a little bit softer. But people that say this shoe is on the firmer side, I got to be honest with you, maybe it's because I'm a bigger runner. 86 kilos, 87-ish, 6'6", maybe I compress the foam more. I think if you're a lighter runner, you might not compress the foam quite as much, but I really do sink into this shoe. The main difference between these two shoes, and I will reiterate what I said, was with the Vaporfly, you sink and bounce. You sink and bounce on every step. And as I get fatigued, and as you guys get fatigued, what I notice in particular is to get the same out of the shoe, I find I have to put more effort in as I get fatigued. But like when I'm trying to keep up the pace, I find that I have to put more effort in to get the same bounce back, is what I'm trying to say. And so that can then get a bit discouraging towards the end of a run when you are really running out of energy and you can't put that same effort in and you don't quite get that same bounce out. So that's the main difference, because this one, you do sort of sink, but you roll and it glides through that foot strike. So you do sink, but it's more of a sink, roll and push off rather than a sink and bounce. It's kind of a sink, roll, push off. And when I felt like I was getting fatigued, especially in the last 2 miles, thinking, oh man, I've got to put up the ante again, I could just do it marginally, but I could do it. And I was feeling so tired. My heart rate was reflected there, hitting 181. But I never at one point did I feel like I was going to drop pace in this shoe, which is again a really encouraging thing. And everything that happened in the test, which was exactly what I'm reiterating now in the Vaporfly, my heart rate topped out a lot higher than it did in the Endorphin Elite, and I felt like I had to put more effort in per stride towards the end to get the same bounce out. I didn't feel that. Heart rate was a lot more controlled in this shoe in the testing, and it kind of showed again on race day. I could just kind of keep going and keep going and keep going. Despite the fatigue, I felt like the shoes were just working with me, and that is the main difference between the two. Vaporfly, very much sink, bounce. This is a kind of a sink, roll, glide, push off, and it's just a completely different sensation. So the only one thing that I want to highlight, and it might be something to do with the shoe or it might not, but my calves were very sore straight after the run. Not straight after, sort of like that afternoon. Monday, they were really, really sore. Tuesday, getting better. It's now Wednesday when I'm recording this, and they were fine. But there was a situation there where I thought my calves were going to cramp on the Sunday evening, and I don't normally get that in racing shoes. So that's just something to bear in mind. I know a lot of people struggle with this shoe because of the aggressive speed roll. They struggle with their calves and plantar fascia and other areas, but mainly there because your toes are permanently in like a flexed position. So your plantar fascia is a little bit more taut, a bit more tense, and that can then obviously follow up into the calves. So I do kind of suspect that it was the shoe that caused that. Not that I found anything whilst I was running, not that I found anything during the run. And I think the big question now hanging over me is, if I was to run a marathon in this shoe, I would absolutely have to do 2 or 3 big 20+ mile runs in them just to make sure that I felt okay, because that was 14 miles on the day. It could have been down to the intensity that I was running those 14 miles. I might be able to run 20 at marathon pace and not quite as bad. Who knows? More testing required there. That's not going to happen soon, but it's the one thing that I wanted to make you guys aware of. Just being open and honest, I kind of feel like this potentially caused me a little bit of a calf ache. No damage done, training's carrying on fine, but it's just something to be aware of. So I guess to wrap it up then, will I use it for Oxford Half Marathon next month? Yes, I will. I was absolutely blown away with everything. The calf thing, I will keep an eye on. I'm not going to use these again now until Oxford, and I'll see how they feel after Oxford, because that'll be another 3 miles on top at a decent intensity. So we'll see how they do there. But basically, this Oldbury 10 miler cemented everything I thought about this shoe. Efficiency, speed, it works with your body. It works with my body anyway. It really is top class. And I'm going to put my neck out there. And right now, I'm going to say I prefer this to the Vaporfly, which I really didn't think I was going to say, but I've said it, it's on video. You can hold me to it if I change my mind later down the line. But right now, I'm kind of feeling so positive about this shoe and what it's given me that I really do feel like this is the elite, as per its name, racing shoe out there. So for me, yeah, I'm going to be using this at the Oxford Half Marathon without a shadow of a doubt. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on the Saucony Endorphin Elite after its first race experience. I now have to be very careful with this shoe because I noticed the mileage is creeping up, and I really just now want to save these for race day only. I think I've got like 40 something miles in them, and really these are now to be saved for races only. No more testing unless it's a very short run. I don't want to use these at all. These are absolute gold, and yeah, they are race reserved only. So those are my thoughts. I might give more thoughts after Oxford, see how they do. I probably won't do another video on it, but I'm sure I'll talk about them in the race recap and the debrief. So stick around for that if you're interested. That's October the 15th. And yeah, if you've got any questions about the Saucony Endorphin Elite, don't hesitate to drop them in the comments below. Would love to hear from you down there, and I hope you enjoyed me sharing my experiences with these shoes after their first race. That's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving it a like, share it with your friends, and of course subscribe to the channel for weekly running content. See you in the next one. Until then.